you can plan all your meals. Your business is humming and everything is going perfectly, and you're not in the office quite as much. And then you're training four days a week. Sometimes you'll train or 3 days a week. But then you're going to have times where you need to take yourself out of that and sacrifice a bit about yourself and some of your own personal stuff. And that might be training. It might be, there are times like, yeah, sure, you could pack a salad and put in your car, but there's also times where you're eating at 4 or 5 meetings a week. Yeah, there's no possible way. And you're not going to sit in a meeting.
Let me get my salad.
Yeah, let me get my salad. It doesn't work like that. It's about finding the balance. And I think for any business owner, that's the hardest thing, is finding balance. Like, I'm 10 years in. I'm still trying to work out a balance, and I'm getting better at it.
Hey, it's Julian from Loan Options. Today I'm here with a friend and a special guest, business owner. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks for having me, mate. My name is Mike Anderson. I'm the founder of Think Again Laser Clinic.
But thanks for coming, mate. I appreciate it. I want to ask you, because you're in a very unique industry. Obviously, there's been a lot of sort of turmoil in the industry for the last couple of years with everything that's been happening, COVID, lockdowns, all that kind of stuff. And we'll get to all of that, but I'm really interested to hear your origin story. Like, how'd you get into running a business? What were you doing prior?
Yep.
Like, tell me your career story and how did you land at tattoo removal?
So it's probably the story that a lot of kids have, where you've got potential at school and then obviously you become the naughty boy and don't reach the potential through your studies. But I've got ADHD, so school never really fit me. The way that the learning model was, I hated it. I would say that I never learned anything from school. From years 7 to 12, I'm not sure I learned anything from like my tertiary studies. It was all kind of street smart. And obviously, but the problem with that is you don't reach the marks that are required to go into the next thing, which is one of the things I hate. To be judged at 18 years old when you're still a baby is something that I really hated, and obviously showed resistance towards that, resistance to authority and things like that. And I ended up in coal mining. So when I went into coal mining, I was introduced to it through a family friend, just because he probably saw me going off the rails a little. So I ended up in coal mining, and really good money. But the money it's good money, but it's not life-changing money. So what you find is people get caught on this hamster wheel where they're stuck with the money. The job is terrible. It's not a fulfilling job. You're working for companies that hate the employees. They treat their employees like crap, constantly fighting over pay disputes, and we were striking, and safety issues, bad for your health, but the money's really good. But I was pretty young to be in there. I sat around and I was fighting at the time. So I used to be a pro fighter at the same time.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. But it kind of went hand in hand, and working 12-hour shifts or 10-hour shifts, plus to travel there and back, commuting there each day, because it was just in Appin, so down the road, was difficult. But I looked around me, and all you saw was old, unhappy guys. Some of them have been divorced 2 or 3 times. Substance abuse was very big, including for yourself. Like people are out partying and stuff to kind of ignore. So you work your ass off all week, and then on the weekend you just blow the roof off, and then you go back to it again. And I said, hang on a minute. This is not sustainable for me. I knew I could see myself going down a path that was going to be quite dark. So I just committed everything to learning within coal mining to get to that next level up. And I became one of the youngest safety inspectors. So I studied through coal mining and became like a safety inspector. It was called a deputy. And that gave me quite good money. So with a plan to, buy a house or whatever. And I remember that my wife and I went to a house inspection at Randwick. We were ready to buy. And at the time it was top story. You had the roof overlooking Randwick Racecourse. As you know, I'm a race fan. Yeah. So to me, I
get to that as well.
And I was like, do we do it? Do we really put everything in? And I was kind of ignoring my needs for that of my partner. Like, she's down that path of, buy a house, have a kid, all that sort of stuff. And we went on a holiday to Thailand, and we'd been talking about starting a business, and we'd started some little things like, e-commerce brands and stuff. Like, I was quite interested. I did want to start a business, and we'd had a big night in Thailand. We're laying on a hammock at 5 a.m, and we're just laying there out of our minds a bit. And I just said to her, I go, we're doing tattoo removal. That's it. Just came into my mind, and that was it. I'd seen like a video of someone doing it, and I said, we're doing it. So also my brother had been getting it. So
Okay.
he'd been getting it. He had a really bad experience with a plastic surgeon. It was quite expensive. So it was like $700 for a credit card side. And he said, the standard is that you'll end up with scarring. So we sat there. I said, I'm doing it. And she goes, all right. And that was it. I think we opened about 4 months later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
So like, how do you go from like, this is just an idea, like talk about that process. Like, how do you find the equipment, the stores?
Well,
I know you got a unique model, so it's.
Well, the thing was, like, my brother had the bad experience. So that was really a big driver for me to find the best equipment. And there was this equipment from Italy, which was at the time, it cost double that now. But at the time, it was like this expensive piece of tech that only one other guy was using, but he was like a more mature guy. He didn't really have that marketing background or like the drive like a young guy had been in with yet. And also at the time, not a lot of people were specializing. So I said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to specialize it and make it its own industry rather than have it go to a beauty clinic where, you might get your hair removal done and you get upsold into tattoo removal. So we kind of isolated it and found the best tech. And it's funny that the guy that sold us our technology, worst salesman on earth. He sucked. He was just a nerd, and he told us all the scientific reasons why. And we met with this other person, another company who sells the competing equipment, and they had the best salesman ever. But he just had no idea, and he couldn't convince me with the tech. So we went down the tech route, and I went with the nerd, and we're still buying from him 10 years later. Yeah.
Probably a good call in hindsight.
It's funnily enough, someone opened a week after us, 300 meters away with that other tech, and they shut down 2 years later. So
there you go.
There's some pivotal moments it's like sliding door moments in business where a little bit of luck, but also a little bit of due diligence that you do that changes your whole life down the track. Yeah.
Could have been you that ended up with that machine.
That's exactly right. And we very almost did, they come in with the bottles of champagne and they sit and they take you to dinner and all that. But you can kind of know sales, when you're being sold to, and you don't want to be sold to with something. It's like a car. The car's either the best car, it's not. The salesman should be irrelevant to the sales process. It should be all about the tech and telling me how it can perform a service better than or superior than the next. Yeah. So anyway, we opened up and put every last cent, 2 credit cards, paying them off at the same time, personal loan in my missus' name, maxed everything, working because there was overtime in the coal mine. So I was working like 85-hour weeks. Sometimes I was going from the coal mine on a 12-hour night shift, doing 6 to 6, driving in peak hour traffic to Roselle, which is where our first location was, sleeping on the lounge for an hour and then doing a full day of clients. So we did that probably for a year and a half or 2 years. And my wife, we split the days. So she got a job that was 3 days. And back then I could do 3 days. So I'd do like a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then I'd work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in the clinic, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the clinic. And she'd do the opposite. So we didn't see each other. We were just working so we worked it out. And then slowly the business built. It was a very slow start. So once it built up, it worked out pretty well. The company that I worked for, because they were such scumbags in the coal mining industry, went into receivership. We all got redundancy. So
a bit of cash.
That was that cash buffer. It was really, really good. It allowed us to bring on a staff member and start to like really put systems in place with a staff member who's still with us today.
Amazing.
Yeah. She's amazing. And she's just starting to move into a role, which is exciting for us, which takes some weight off me and more like the operations side of it and the compliance and training and stuff. But my wife, Chloe, does now. So she's obviously not doing the laser, and neither am I. But I still do from time to time. So if needed, I'll go onto the laser.
Yeah, that's the part about business owners that probably, is the less sexy part. Like a lot of people think that, once you run a business, you have staff, all that, you kind of just put your feet up. And it's not the case at all. Like if anything, your hands are always dirty. You're always wearing any hat you need to. Like one day I'm, sweeping and vacuuming the floors. The next day I'm doing a loan. The next day I'm, going through accounts.
Probably fixing the floor as well is not uncommon.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you do anything and everything.
It's about, look, you can pay someone to do all of that, but it's also about setting an example and showing your staff that you lead from the front.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff shows a lot. If a staff member, for us, Saturday is a big day. If a staff member requests a Saturday off, it's a big deal to the business because that's our busiest day. But if as an owner, I'm willing to give up my Saturday and go in and cover that person, they appreciate that. So it's a holistic approach as a business owner to stay involved.
Yeah.
And when I look at our competitors or people in the industry where they don't have that oversight and the business owner's not there, you slowly see as they expand that they lose touch. And that's something I'm very conscious of.
And they're just employees. So those people don't care about the business as much as
that's
you
right.
probably do.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. Like, there's no one, when you're a business owner, there's pretty much no one, if you're doing it right, there should be nobody that cares more about the business than you do. And
hopefully they do, but one day.
Right. But your job is to try and make them care as much.
90%. If you can get them to 90% of you,
yeah,
and you're never going to get 100%.
Yeah.
You might with the odd employee, but if you can get them all to a 90%, and you're going to have some at 70, you're going to have some at 40. But it's about having a good average, I think, and the best.
Setting the benchmark high, because, if you set the benchmark high and they achieve 90% of that, then it's actually still a pretty good outcome for the business.
Very good, yeah.
They're still caring about it. They're still taking care of the customers. And if you treat your staff good, they usually treat your customers good as well.
That's exactly right. And it's got to flow all the way down to your cleaners, like your accountants. You have to have a good relationship with everyone in your business. And because, if you have a really good relationship with your accountant, they care a bit more. So when it comes to return time or preempting your taxes and giving you like an outlook on your taxes, it helps the business in so many ways.
Yeah.
If you're an asshole in business, it flows all the way down to your customers, unfortunately, and the customer notices it.
Yeah, I've obviously tried to build my entire business on that same framework of like being a good person, and it pays itself in spades. It does take time because there is that saying that like nice guys finish last, and to some degree, being a good person sometimes does get you trampled on, or people think they can take advantage of you. All that kind of stuff.
Don't mistake me for a nice guy, but
no. Well, yeah. Look, I guess you and I met through jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
and it was you'd had a break because you used to be an Australian champion MMA fighter.
Yeah,
one of the first to sort of win by submission through leg locks and stuff like that. So, and one of the things I loved about like meeting you is just how brutally honest you are.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing because a lot of people just, beat around the bush, or, they don't really say the things that are on their mind. They'll like beat around the bush. Everyone knows in the gym and outside of the gym, Mikey Anderson is just as blunt as you can get, and not rude, just as blunt as like unfiltered. But there's something really refreshing about it when it comes with you, because you are actually a really good person, very caring. You take care of your wife and kid. You sort of look after your mates. You're a very, very loyal person.
Yeah.
And it's something like, we obviously have a lot of sparring matches in the gym, and it's great. Even though like you could easily beat the shit out of me, like you know when to like take, okay, he's having a...
No, I'm trying to hurt you. I'm trying to hurt you.
It's great. I think jiu-jitsu is one of those sports where like it's the most humbling experience. Because you get in there, you roll with somebody who's like maybe not as skilled as yourself, and then you roll with someone like yourself who's former champion, a higher rank.
But then in the same sense, there's times where you get me, and
I would say that is like 1 to 100 ratio.
But that 1 in 100 is the time you get, and it's not that. It's probably like 1 to 10, I would say. Like you've got a very good standard as well. Don't, like you always talk down to yourself about jiu-jitsu, but what I look at you in jiu-jitsu is you're like you're the book nerd. You want to read it and understand the technique, whereas I'm the bull. I'm just trying to smash people's faces in. Yeah. Which is like it's the 80-20 rule, and it's funny. It's like it's in business, it's in family, it's even family events. Like 80-20 is what I say. I go, look, people are going to like you 80% of the time, and 20% they're going to go, oof.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty rough, or that's pretty rude. But really, is it rude? Are you trying to hurt people? As long as you're not trying to hurt people when you're forward, That's the main thing. You can be very forward to someone. Like, you know, I walk in the gym the other day and Lucas goes, "Oh, you look fat." That's to my benefit. And if you're someone who's not real, you will get upset by that.
Yeah,
But you know, I put a few kilos on because I haven't been training. I've been working a lot, so it happens.
It does happen.
And guess what it did? When you're driving past McDonald's on the way to a meeting, and you know, you might stop, but it goes, "Oh, Lucas called me fat yesterday."
Better watch what
We need it. We need it. But the world needs that. The whole world needs more of that.
Honesty.
Yeah, it's honesty.
And it's not like, oh, you're fat shaming, blah, blah. Fuck all of that. I think like there's been times in my life where I look at photos now and I'm just absolutely appalled that I ever let myself. And the reason for that is no one actually had the honesty to say, man, you've put on a lot of weight, you know.
It serves a purpose, but as well, like if you think about times where you've put on a lot of weight and times where you go through ebbs and flows in business, because you're going to have time where you can plan all your meals. Your business is humming and everything's going perfectly and you're not in the office quite as much. And then you're training four days a week. Sometimes you'll train or 3 days a week, but then you're going to have times where you need to take yourself out of that and sacrifice a bit about yourself and some of your own personal stuff. And that might be training. It might be, there are times like, yeah, sure, you could pack a salad and put in your car, but there's also times where you're eating at 4 or 5 meetings a week. Yeah, there's no possible way. And you're not going to sit in a meeting.
Let me get my salad.
Yeah, let me get my salad. It doesn't work like that. It's about finding the balance. And I think for any business owner, that's the hardest thing, is finding balance. Like I'm 10 years in, I'm still trying to work out a balance and I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at maintaining routine and making sure that I put time into each category.
Having some things that are like non-negotiables has been pretty good for me as well. Yeah. It's like, okay, when I get home, like I eat with the family, like I don't touch my phone and computer for a little bit.
I try my best.
No. Or for a period, like I'll eat and, you know, ask them how they're doing and, you know, sit and talk to the kids and the wife. And then like I'll put the kids down. And then after that, you know, my phone and laptop will come back out. And, you know, because you can't, I mean, I can't employ enough people to do the work. The business can't afford to employ 1,000 people to do all the tasks that need to be done. And no one's going to be willing to sit there at 11 o'clock at night, work, you know, you spoke about working 80, 85-hour weeks. Like to business owners, that's pretty
normal.
It's pretty common, normal. And
it's not about whether you want to or you don't want to. It's like, if I don't do these hours, we're not going to be here next month.
No, that's right.
And I think you need that as well.
Some people, they don't see that part though, because they see the sexy part about being a business owner. I get to be my own boss and blah, blah, blah.
The thing is, but what they don't realize is you're not the boss.
No, that's
your boss is your customers.
Yeah.
And you're working for your customers. So you think you're the boss, but at the end of the day, the boss is the customer. And we all need to yield to that, whether that means putting in extra hours or changing something or moving someone on who's not fitting for the business. There's a lot of things that the customer determines, and it's our job to kind of interpret that and make sure that it's reflected in the business, whether that be the 85-hour week, or it might even mean you need to log off for a week and do no work at home. That it's all flows through to the customer at the end of the day. Yeah.
And obviously, last few years have been particularly challenging for the beauty, cosmetic, you know, sort of, there was a period through COVID where the first businesses to close and shut down were like anything.
We were day one. Yeah. It was first thing. It was like hairdressers. I think it was hairdressers, health and beauty, massage, all of that stuff. And tattoo removal falls under it. Well, we thought about
saying it's a medical thing.
But the way they got us was the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was quite excited for 2 weeks off. At first I was like, beautiful, let's pack it up.
I think a lot of people, including me, because I'm a known skeptic about what happened. But you know, a lot of people thought 2 weeks, we can do this.
Yeah.
Everyone can, you know, work from home for 2 weeks. Everyone can just, it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, that thing. And I was like, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm going to be able to sit at home with my wife and my daughter at the time. I'm going to be able to sit at home and watch Netflix and get work done and do this Zoom thing.
Catch up.
Team and, you know, like, and you're right. They did lure everybody in with 2 weeks, and 2 weeks became 3 months. And then like all the businesses that, you know, some still haven't recovered, you know, like we've got a lot of clients in those industries and in hospitality as well. And some of those businesses are still like overdraft up to their ears, still lines
And then
of
the
credit.
taxes start to go onto the payment plans, and then it flows on.
And now the ATO is ruthless.
They're shutting people, man.
Mate, yeah. You're on a payment. You're like, they want payment plans. They want big money. As like deposits to pay off. Like they want big upfront payments to go on a payment plan. Like they're ruthless, and I feel for small businesses because, you know, they really haven't had any chance to breathe.
It's also not a reflection of their product. It's like it's not their fault. They might have been having a business that was just ticking along for 10 years and just giving them the life they wanted. They're not interested in scaling. They're just they had this business. They, out of their own control, were put into this situation. The government came in and acted and put them in this position, caused inflation. The cost piled up, and is it their fault? It's not. Like, you might look at it like, oh, that's a crappy business. It's not. It's still a good business. It still has good fundamentals. It's just that they were operating at a level where they weren't able to take on it. Like, realistically, it was 2 years.
It was.
These businesses, like, realistically, like, you opened up in between or whatever. It was 2 years.
It wasn't the same.
What company has 2 years cash flow? No one.
But not just that, it was 2 years and maybe even a little bit more, because like there were, even when the hospitality industry was allowed to open, there was rules around how many people could be in their restaurant.
Yeah, it was rubbish.
Like a restaurant can't, if you understand the fun, like the actual unit economics of a restaurant as an example, you know, like you basically need to be fully booked to make the numbers work.
If I walk into a restaurant on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I can just walk in, I go, this restaurant's got 2 years left. And that's because they need those 3 days, and it covers the cost for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. Most of them lose money on those days, but you have to be open.
Yeah.
So what they did is they put them in an environment where all of their days were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So they were open, but they still had the overheads, because you still got your chefs, you still got all of that. You've got all your booking systems. So the overheads don't change.
And then what they had to do is cut staff, you know, in terms of how much people can staff the vicinity. Service went down. People go, I'm not going back there, blah, blah, blah. And it, you know, we sort of asked people to be understanding of small businesses through that time, because they were just trying to survive. Like, it wasn't it's not, when somebody is in that fight or flight mode or survival mode, it's never the best version of themselves. It doesn't matter if it's a person or a business. You back someone into a corner, it's never going to be the best version of that person.
Yeah, it's something you got to remember. People were forced to make decisions.
Yeah,
decisions that none of us were equipped to make calls that we made. Right. Like the expectation that the whole heavy lifting of the whole country was done by small business in that time.
Yeah,
you know, they put us in a position where you had to choose to sack your staff, and then what happens? They get an office job. So for a service industry, you could get so many office jobs back then. There was a lot of office jobs available. You sack your staff, they go get the office job, you open back up, and you don't have qualified or trained or competent people to reopen and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So we were forced to make that decision. We were never given like firm opening dates. They should have been able to model it economically and go, right, because that's what it was. It was an economic decision, I believe, when they opened up, because nothing changed. The health situation hadn't changed. They pushed everyone as far as they could, realized that it was about to cause like a societal collapse, and then said, all right, there you go. For what? They should have been able to look at it if they had any sort of modeling or any sort of foresight and gone, right, so the most we can go here is a 3-month lockdown.
Yeah.
And then people would have been able to make decisions on that accordingly. So I think it was incompetent, and it showed
total incompetence.
Yeah.
And flawed modeling. Bullshit.
Yeah, it was all made up. It was made up. And
anytime people talk to me about modeling, forecasting, blah, 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 I'm like, all right, bro, you're basically saying that you are building a time machine. You know, like,
that's right.
How can you forecast this? This is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they were all based on flawed logic. The variables weren't taken into consideration. They used worst case scenarios for a lot of things. They overestimated the lethalness of the disease.
And they knew that. Like, we're not virologists or whatever, but they knew that you can't control something like that. And that's like, I threw myself in, because so much power was taken away from me as a person, you know, like in being able to make a living, essentially. I threw myself right into it and went real deep. And I knew from early on, I was like, you can't control it. At some point it spreads. So do you just this stuff about preparing the system and all that. They didn't prepare anything.
No.
Nothing really changed. They didn't have these wards set up. And, you know, my wife ended up in a COVID ward, in a bubble, back when it was like, back when you weren't, it wasn't common. So she had just had a baby 6 weeks, right? And she got mastitis, which is a treatable thing. You know, you go to the chemist, get an antibiotic, whatever. And it was a recurring one. So it was pretty bad. They wouldn't treat her. So we're at home and we had COVID and she got the mastitis. And back then it was like, I think it was like 3 weeks or something, 21 days. You had to stay locked in. So no doctor would come look at it. She's breastfeeding. We've got a 6-week-old kid at the time who also had COVID. And they locked her. So basically what they said is, we're coming to get you and we're taking you to hospital in an ambulance, away from your kid. We don't know when you'll be out and you'll be treated in the hospital because we're not allowing you to be treated at home. So they dragged her away from 6-week-old, left me at home. I was like, shit, where's this instruction manual? You know, she was doing most of the mothering at that time. So this was like the craziest thing ever. Like, she gets taken to hospital, locked in a bubble, no change of undies for 6 days. The infection, nobody wanted to go into the bubble with her because they were so scared. The nurses were so scared to go in. So they're treating her through this thing. She wasn't getting water. She was down the back of this ward at St. Vincent's. The infection turned into a blood infection. She almost died. Fuck. So she was forced to wean our kid. So our kid wasn't able to breastfeed anymore. She was locked in this thing. She didn't have a change of underwear for 6 days. Literally just ignored her. So in the end, it got really bad. Like, she said, I think I'm dying. And I called up New South Wales Health. I said, you don't know what I look like. I'm leaving right now, this house, out of lockdown. And I'm going to walk through that ward. I'm going to give every single person, anyone who tries to stop me, I'll kill, because I'm dragging her out of there. And cops came to my house and it was crazy. So if you got your wife calling you,
I know, saying
like literally, she had a blood infection. So it turned into like septic or whatever it's called. It turned really serious. And they were going to have to like cut her breast open. And I'm on the phone to like New South Wales Health, doctors like private doctors that I'm friends with, like all this stuff. And lawyers, it was lawyers that sorted it out. It ended up being like, luckily, you know, I have access to good lawyers. And the lawyers ended up calling up and media and all this stuff started buzzing and nobody could believe it. So it was a pretty wild time. Yeah.
Crazy shit. And it for some reason, like, part of me has done the very best it can to like block all of that.
That's what I've done.
Every now and again, I'll scroll through my camera roll and I see all the helicopters and all this crazy shit.
Oh, because you're in the thick of it.
I can't believe. Yeah. I cannot. I still don't believe.
Yeah.
Like, I was pushing my nephew and in a pram and my daughter walking back from a park. My brother-in-law was, you know, walking next to me, and cop literally mounted the curb and said, "Hey, you guys are more than 1.5, like you're closer than 1.5 meters. God. What are you doing out of your house?" And like, we're going for a walk to get some fresh air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was crazy. Oh, I've never people like understand that, you know, okay, people still at the beach all the time and all this kind of stuff. But like, if you're in Western Sydney and you had choppers at 1, 2, 3 a.m. flying over your house where your windows are shaking like this, flying closer than they should be, it was a nightmare of a time. Yeah,
it was a nightmare. And like, that was just the personal side. Everyone's got a personal story. Yeah. It's crazy. Everyone has a personal story. Yeah. So like, you know, got trauma in kids, you know, kids that were brought up for their first 3 years of home, of their life in a house.
Yeah.
You got to think about what that's going to do in 10 years. Like, there's going to be a flow-on effect.
So many learning delays, speech delays.
Oh, it's crazy. Like,
people wearing masks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the business aspect too.
Yeah, so
tell us how on earth you got through that, because, you know, we were very fortunate. We're an office business.
You probably went up a bit in COVID, right?
No, I wouldn't say up. And the reason is, like, you know, a lot of our business was coming from, you know, people buying cars and stuff, and just no one wanted to go into these, you know, like most car dealerships are like these big glass showrooms, and they just look like petri dishes.
No one wants to go in. Yeah.
So sales for like our most dominant products were down. did lead us to diversify our portfolio a little bit. We became one of the leaders in the country of personal loans.
Pretty cool.
We were just, we got a little bit smarter and a bit clever about how we did things. But I wouldn't say like, because we were growing, we were on the up, and then the second lockdown happened, and it just flattened our growth. We still were growing, but it flattened it. Flattened it. But we had the luxury of working in an office, or if people like, I was pretty like adamant. No, we work in the office. Like we're going to continue.
Did you guys work all the way through?
Yeah, and we got exemptions because we're financial services. It
was critical.
Yeah,
yeah. We need to get loans to go gamble online. Yeah. What else we were going to do?
And look,
but it is critical because you are allowing businesses to continue. So you'll be letting people leverage their houses to get an overdraft that they can't otherwise get. Yeah. So it actually is a critical thing.
Help people consolidate debts and all of it. Yeah. Help them manage. But yeah, that's easy because we were in an office business. Like, if you're in a retail consumer services business like yourself, like you can't really do that. And they forced you to close.
Yeah.
How on earth did you get through that?
Well, it was, we had multiple locations. We'd just hired all these staff that we were training up to allow for a big expansion. And we had all this money saved. So I was preparing, I called it a war chest. So we'd been really frugal in the business and every last cost I'm over. There's not one thing that goes through our business that I don't see. And luckily we were frugal. So we had enough money and, what was it, like $750 a week? But I was the same thing. As a person, you want to know that you looked after people during it. I think we had like 3 or 4 or 5 staff, whatever it was at the time. And these are young girls. They got rent. They got all that stuff. And at one point, we just said, fuck it. We'll just go all in. We'll go as long as we can till the wheels fall off and we'll go down together. So we kind of met with the girls and I said, look, we can make work for you. So I'm going to make some bullshit admin that we probably overlooked for the last couple of years. So we gave them the worst project ever, like going through every single file. And, we did a CRM update. So we moved all of our stuff into a new CRM. We did the worst work ever. And I just said, look, we'll pay you as if you're at work on your base. But, our staff are incentivized. So they still took a hit as well. So they lost all of their incentive. And I said, whatever the shortfall is between the government's incentive or whatever it is, the $750, we'll make you pay up, and we'll do that as long as we can. And there was one point where our account got down to $8,000.
Yeah.
So it was touch and go for a little while. Fortunately, I'd been working on an acquisition of our business at the time. So the Clutch Capital, who now is a 50% shareholder of our company, was coming on board and we were working on it. So it gave me time to work on that. And then we pretty much, that took, I don't know if you've ever done acquisition. Mm-hmm. You think it's going to take 6 weeks, it takes 9 months.
Yeah.
So you go through all the detail, but we had a pretty good idea that at the end of this, we're going to have a big supporter behind us. And it let me probably put more work into it than I otherwise would have, and probably get the upper hand in some things of that negotiation because I was focused on just that. And so we just paid everyone to stay at home because, again, you do it as a person, and I truly did believe in doing the right thing by the community at that time. But also, if I didn't pay them and they get that office job, you're not getting them back. So you don't have a business.
The allure for a lot of people was, I'll go and work somewhere, I can do the work from home. The amount of people that got more than one job and didn't tell their other employers.
I had a mate.
It is crazy.
I had a mate
how much that goes on.
That had 2 jobs, and he was outsourcing one job to India. It was in a design job. And so he was outsourcing it. He was getting 2 wages. So, but guess what? He did the job.
Yeah.
So does it matter who does it? I don't know.
It's crazy. I mean,
there's a small ethical answer there.
There is. And man, just as a business owner, it's like you could outsource almost everything and send it, but there's a responsibility that I have. Maybe it's self-imposed, but like I want to employ Aussies. I want to employ people like
you want to keep the money in the economy too.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, we're in New Zealand now, and I know you've expanded to New Zealand as well, so we'll get to that. But we want to employ Kiwis. Of course. You feel you're a business owner. You're employing locals. You want to work in the local economy. You're supporting it. You're
But
playing
even-
your part. It's part of being a business owner. You could have like a big team in the Philippines or a big team in India or a big team, and like, it's great. Like they have their purpose, but not for everything. Like,
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you've got a responsibility as an Australian to support our economy, because everyone thinks like that. Where's all the money? It's overseas. There's no money for roads, schools, all of that. And pretty much everything except for services can be outsourced. That, like, you've got this big office, and when I walk in there, it's incredible to see. There's a hum about it, and you can see that it feels like Google. It feels like I've walked into a Google office, and those things you see in the movie. And all of those jobs could be overseas, pretty much, all of them. But you've made a choice.
You wouldn't need the rent.
That's what I mean. You've got the overhead. So that's an ethical way to conduct business. And I think that, again, it all flows down to your customer. If I ring up Commonwealth Bank and I don't speak to an Australian, I get offended. But what if it's a person that just immigrated here and got an accent, but you still think the same? But there's a lot of I think that a lot of people will either look back at themselves with shame or to be proud about their conduct in COVID. And I think if you all that stuff that we couldn't control and how bad it all was, I think the benefit was who you are after that. I think it made people either show grit or fold or do the right thing by people or fuck people over.
You're right. I think people did learn a lot about themselves, like how easily the government and the media can manipulate and control businesses.
Yeah.
But also, anyway, there's a lot there. But so you bring this investor on board, and now you've expanded your shops. At the time, how many did you have?
So we had 2 when the investor came on board. So we'd opened Roselle and Miranda, and we were actually approached by a massive fund, who's an American company that has 80 clinics over there.
Wow.
And that was, again, so I had that offer before the fund came on, and the way it worked was they came on and I was like, it was a great offer. I was like, man, that's life-changing money. And it was tempting. But also, if you believe in your brand and your product and you believe you're the best in the world, and I had 2 little clinics. I was like, nah, we're the best in the world. I knew at the time. I was like, we're the best in the world. So when the theoretical world's best comes to you with that money, it's a tempting offer. But also, I had to stay on as an employee for a while. And that was really the clincher for me, where I was like, I ain't working for no one. I've worked this hard to not work for people, and I'd rather work for myself for 1/10 of what I could earn for them.
Yeah.
And what they'd done is, because they're a fund, it's a massive, $1 billion fund. They'd approached an Australian fund, Clutch Capital, for finance for the Australian expansion that they were planning. And Clutch ended up having a meeting and saying, well, fuck it. Why don't we just do it ourselves and find an Australian company, and we'll go direct rather than go through a fund and just get the 7 or 4%, whatever they get. We'll go straight there and we'll take ownership of an existing operator. And I was working at my Miranda clinic. I was between clients, and I had a missed call, I think it was. And I don't know if it started as an email or a call, but I thought it was a scammer. It was like, oh, I'm interested in your business. And I was like, fuck off, idiot. I was like, and then it comes back like, no, we've done the research. We're Australian based. Our office is in Chatswood. Come to the Chatswood. And I was like, right, I'll meet you if it's in person. I'm not going to talk to you over the phone, because I'm not going to believe this shit until I get there. Because, it's like, it's like a...
Especially over COVID, there was heaps.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that it was that part happened after the first lockdown.
Okay.
So we'd been through one. We were negotiating with the first people, and then like that kind of happened right at right near the second lockdown.
Yeah, okay.
And so I go to Chatswood, I meet there, and I sit down, and it's Shane Teo, which is like the owner of TPG.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we want to buy part of your business. So then I'm like, fuck, what just happened? Because they wouldn't tell me who it was. It was Clutch Capital, so they've got all these like different companies and things within there. And so started negotiating with the TOs. So, I rocked up in the first meeting. I dressed up, and I roll in, they're wearing thongs and t-shirts. And you feel like the biggest dickhead on earth. So I wear t-shirts now. So I took that, and they're fucking great partners, man. Like I can't, like, you hear all these bad stories about don't bring investors, you lose control. So I got full control of the company. I got money at a 5-second call. It clears tomorrow if I need finance money.
Yeah.
So I can get finance at 3% fixed for the rest of my life. I've got a supportive company that also has, they've got all other brands under their umbrella. So we can use their accounting advice, their modeling. We can use so many things, but more often than not, we just go to a directors meeting once a quarter, have a coffee, talk about the UFC, and that's it. Like, where are you opening? They just say, where are you opening next?
Yeah.
Supportive, like they know things about the American market. They've acquired American companies, and they're a really good Australian family for investment. But we've got within them guys who help them. So like, there's 3 of them that I work directly with, and mate, they're the best.
It's actually nice to hear those stories. Like I've been involved in some M&A stuff, and have a lot of mates who've been through that, whether it's VC money or private equity or even a ASX listed business. And I don't know, you hear so many bad stories, you hear so many and just think like, fuck, it's hard. And sometimes even just the way that you structure the deal is important, and like so it's got to be very clear who's responsible for what and who's bringing what to the table. And also, what happens if they don't bring that to the table? There needs to be some kind of like reverse incentive or like a penalty, if you will.
Yeah.
Because like too often companies say, yeah, I'll give you this and I'll give you this much money and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then they don't. But you've already given up half your business, and like to unwind that is like almost impossible. And
also, generally speaking, you're working with someone who can write it off as a loss. Whereas for you, if you write your business off as a loss, where do you go? So you've got to be very conscious of that. So these guys are billionaires. For them to write off a few $1 million to us, that's just they put a line through it. They're talking about a drop in the ocean. But what I really like about these guys, they're not motivated by money because they've already got money. What they're motivated in is building empire. So they want to have verticals with successful businesses and expansion models so that they can just continue to expand their wealth. But also, I guess it becomes like a power thing for them. So because it wasn't just about money, like they came to me with an offer and I doubled it. And then when they didn't say much about it, I was like, oh, plus a little bit more. And they were just like, yep. And I kind of feel like I underdid it in some ways, but finding, and you've got a long period. So it's kind of good that those things always blow out to 9 or 12 months or whatever to get the deal completed, because you've got a lot of time to get to know them.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of hours going back and forth, and my legal fees were monumental. I thought I'd walk in there for like 20K and it was probably like 4 or 5 times that by the time it was all said and done. But it's the best money you'll ever spend, because everything in the shareholders agreement that we've got with them is clearly stipulated. There's no ifs or buts. It's all there exactly how you need it. But I had like a consultant, I guess you'd call it. It was just my old neighbor. And I thought I had no idea who he was. He's got not the like most outgoing personality on earth, but he's just a spreadsheet guy. So he can just look at things as dollars and cents and give you advice on that. And he's done a few acquisitions himself. So he was a really good guy to lean on. So I had good advice throughout it. And all the hang-ups, we just worked through it. And what he said was, right, it's all signed. We went and you have the champagne, take the photo and all that sort of stuff. He goes, right, now put that in your filing cabinet. And the only time you'll go to that shareholders agreement again is when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
He said, don't even think about it. Don't worry about it. That's just there so that in the event that someone doesn't uphold their end of the bargain or something's not nice, that's the only time you ever go back to it.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of people, usually when they're entering into some kind of M&A, whether it's VC or private equity or whatever, they enter into it and they've got the honeymoon eyes still on, and so they that's all right, I don't want to have to worry about that. Nah, they're good guys, and but the shareholders agreement should be there almost with the reverse of that lens. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't do a shareholders agreement with the honeymoon eyes. Even if you're best mate,
assume the worst.
Yeah, you absolutely have to assume that this person is going to try and fight you.
That's exactly right.
And it's not personal, and it's usually better if you let the lawyers handle it and just stay out of it, so it doesn't create tension in the relationship. But it is really important.
Well, there was moments there was moments in that negotiation, right, where I was dealing directly with the main partner, And he just said, fuck you, I'll write it off as tax, and hung up on me. But it was good that it happened, because you realize like that's what that's the way they think, is it's not a big deal to them, where it's a big deal to me. So because it was a big deal to me, I was getting hung up on every fucking detail. And by the end of it, I know contract law like anything now. So, there's things like bad levers and good levers and all these terms that you never knew. And I just threw myself into it. So we were locked down. I'm pretty sure my wife was still pregnant at the time. And I was sitting there with, hundreds of pages of contract document that most people would never read. And I knew every single word and every detail. And I was finding words in there, researching the word, realizing it was...
That's the ADHD.
That is, man.
Baby.
Yeah. So I was locking in, usually half pissed, like sitting on it, getting overweight, and writing down every detail and researching every word. Any word that I read, I didn't just skim over it. If I didn't know it, I looked it up, and then I'd highlight that word and I'd write the implication of it. And I basically broke that contract down word for word. And I had dozens of these laid out at times over my whole house. And I sat there and I knew every single detail. And I've been able to offer that advice to other people now, like the in particular bad lever, like having the things in the contract so that if you become a bad lever, I have the right to reacquire the company back from you at cost. So there's a lot of things that you can put in there to protect yourself that, I worked with someone recently who was doing an acquisition. I was like, so what's your bad lever? And they're like, oh, I don't have it in there. So we'll change your lawyer.
Yeah.
So it's about like you have an obligation in a business to be a lawyer, a marketing director, a specialist, a cleaner, a carpenter. You have to be everything.
Everything.
You have to be, because if you pay people to do everything for you, A, you're relying on other people to control your life and your livelihood, and B, you run out of money. You can't pay people to do everything.
No. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So how many clinics are you up to now?
So we're up to 8, and in our contract, again, we had stipulations in there of how we'll expand and where we'll expand and when we'll expand. And we have basically, I'm the majority shareholder with what's called the controlling interest. So I have full control at the moment. But as we scale out to 15, they will become the majority shareholder at some point for an agreed value or a multiplier of the profit, which is what I made up. So I said, well, that's what I want as the minimum. And I want it as a multiplier. So if I do better than that, I get more. But yeah, so in that contract, we had an obligation to test markets. So we went into what we called our testing phase, which we're just about to come out of. And it was like a slower burn to prove models. So like what we focused on was developing our online training modules. So getting all of our detail, because it was such a one-on-one heavy in-person training program that it was not scalable. And if you look around, there's not many multiple location tattoo removal places because it's such a hard thing to learn and perfect. So we went into online stuff so that we could test, remote locations. So first thing we had to test was interstate, which we opened in Brisbane. And we went through some challenges, man. We had a terrible staff member up there, I won't go into detail publicly about it, but I'll tell you after, but some horrible things happened up there. And what we then had to do was, because it takes 3 or 4 months to train someone, we had to make out we were expanding and have the person shadowing the staff member at the time to train her up. And then I just turned up one day and said, you're out, and put the thing in front of her and said, this is why you're out. So it really scared me off. And I was like, man, I don't know if we can scale like this. I don't know if we can.
Super important when you're starting a new business or a new location of an existing business, having the right people. Oh my God.
You can't understand it. Like that showed me, and at the time I was doing the hiring, and I suck at hiring, man. I like everyone. So I'm like, yep, good. Come on in.
Yeah.
And what
I've made mistakes too, where I hire people who are friends of other people or whatever. They almost never work out.
No.
It's so rare that,
I fired my own sister. She turned up late, but she had a coffee. So that told me that she brought the coffee while she was late. So I said, you're out. So,
well, you crack me up, bro.
But again, it's like you have to consider, is it the relationship or is it work? We can fix work. Work doesn't matter. The relationship can't be saved. So you got to salvage the important part of that. And, and it was the best thing that ever happened to her because she got a new career out of it and she's doing really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we tested Brisbane. So that was our first one, like remote. And then the next thing I wanted to test was further remote, so international, and working with new taxation systems and all of that sort of stuff. And then the third agreement we had was to test the shopping center model, whereas traditionally we're in a strip mall, which is the surrounding area of the shopping center, for the exposure, which we discussed before, because you want car exposure as opposed to foot traffic, and then to test in the center. And then from there, we're taking data and working out what works. And I feel like we've refined the process. So we're just waiting on now the results of the shopping center, give it 12 months, see how it goes. And then we're really going to push and be aggressive.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So,
International expansion.
yeah. So,
New Zealand.
yeah. So as I spoke to you before, like the big competitor from America came to Australia, and they came because they didn't acquire what in America. So they look really huge on paper. They've got 85 locations or whatever it is, but they're not developing new clinics. They're buying mums and dads. So they're basically just monopolizing the industry, bringing all these people in. And then what they did is they came to Australia and assumed that we were all going to sell to them like in America. And what they probably underestimate is the entrepreneurial spirit of Australia. And I don't think they've acquired any. So they've knocked on every single door, guaranteed, because they knocked on my door. Nobody sold. So then they've had to pivot and start greenfields locations, which is like from the ground up, training staff, opening the locations, all of that. Whereas when you're buying existing businesses, you've got a pretty good idea that it's working. Like they got the location, the fit out. You just got to refit it out, put the branding on. It's not that hard of a job. So they opened like 15 clinics. I'm pretty sure it is. And they opened next to my second location because I said no. That was their first shop. And their models, I don't think it works. So they opened in these big shopping center, 300 square meter shops. And I know how this industry works better than them. I guarantee you that. I looked at it and I said, not only is your tech not as good as ours, you don't have results like ours, and you're signing these big ass leases. Someone's going to come knocking at some point. Something out of those three will come knocking. And I think you're starting to see now like that the weakness is showing. And I said, we had plans to push out to like 15 to 20 clinics in Australia, but we got the population of 30 mil or whatever in a country the size of America. I said, well, fuck it. They came here. I'm going there. I said, I'll still come back here and fill in, but I'm going to go there first, put my foot on the throat over there, and I'll open next to every one of their clinics. And I feel like we've been tested in a smaller market through COVID from the ground up. We've got better tech. I just can't see a negative. And I can see that if I open next door to them, 80% of their customers come next door tomorrow. So I'm not scared at all of the expansion into America. And we've got the model right with all the training and stuff, and we're developing all of that stuff. And I'm pretty excited, and it seems pretty out there. And you tell people, where are you going next? And they're expecting you to say, oh, Narellan. And I say California. Yeah. And they're like, what the fuck are you? Like, even my dad was like, yeah, what? Where's California? Like, he thought it was somewhere in Australia. And I think
California's population is,
they got the population of Australia.
Yeah.
In an area the size of Sydney. So, if you can make it work in Australia, and that's what we got to work in Australia. You got to work to take people's money. If you can make it work in Australia and you have good systems and good processes and good supporting staff and good finance behind you, you can make it work anywhere. So I feel like Australia we build really good brands and successful companies that can expand into American markets. Yeah. But coming from a 10 times density population into Australia isn't the same. Yeah. And I think they're starting to see that. Like, of course you're checking, you're always looking, they've got high staff turnover, their clinics shut from time to time. Like, I know that the foot will be on the throat when we go over into America, and two things can happen. We scale up really quick and we keep it, or that you knock on their door enough and they start to shit themselves and they give you a stupid offer.
Yeah.
So we'll take either of those. Yeah.
So what's been like some of the most challenging parts? Like, obviously we spoke about COVID, but outside of the things that are outside of your control, what's been like the most challenging part of being a business owner versus, working in the coal mine?
I guess like the most challenging thing is staff. Like, I got great staff, but it's still a challenge. And keeping staff, it's we're not paying $300K. So you're going to have people who are looking for more and stuff like that. But developing a model where staff can be incentivized higher than anywhere else that they can go within the industry, being profitable and retaining staff for long term has been a challenge. But my wife took over the hiring, and it's going a lot better. So we're finding that I'll just sit and do a talk. I'm just like, I'm not asking interview questions. I just sit down. Was asking general life stuff where she's really nailing it down. I went over to New Zealand the other day for interviewing, because what's happening is the girl from New Zealand, she's lived in California before and she's killed it in New Zealand. So we were basically replacing her in New Zealand and then moving her to California. So she's a part owner of the New Zealand clinic too. So we've opened up now. Any of our staff at any time, if they're a good person and a good employee, can buy a share of a clinic. So, these are young girls. They're going to have kids. They're going to want to travel. I say to them, you can do 2 or 3 with very little input. Like, we make it so affordable where anyone can buy it, like anyone can get in. And I don't care if we lend them the money. I want everyone to want to own a part of it.
Yeah.
And what you found in New Zealand is it was our fastest scale up. I didn't have to check their work. I don't have to, because you get 80% more effort for 20% of equity. Yeah. So we call it the joint venture model, and that's modeled off Oscar Wiley's model. That's what our partners own them as well. And that's what they have. So they're optometrists, same thing. They can just go be an optometrist for themselves. So why would you stay with me? Well, A, I've got a model that works. B, we're both going to make a lot of money. And C,
brands there.
Yeah, and you can go have a kid and still come in and run it and make 20% of the rev or the profit.
Yeah.
So staff it's the number one challenge. That's pretty much it. It's like we've been pretty fortunate, and I think that we've put in the due diligence to set the business up and scale it slowly. Like, I could be at 15 clinics. I can open them tomorrow. But is it sustainable? Like, I'm not looking to make millions of dollars today. I make very little money today because we put it all back in, and mostly to the ATO. But but yeah, so I'd say staff. It's probably like any business is staff, but we don't have problems with staff. It's just about finding the right model with staffing and how we do it. Do we go, do you, in remote locations, do you look for someone who's a little bit more mature and locked into a marriage and has a mortgage? Are you going to get better reliability out of that?
Yeah, because you need continuity, right? Like,
yeah,
that's about looking after the customer. If the customer comes in and on session 1 they're dealing with Jane, and session 2 it's Kelly, and session 3 it's like, what's going on here? It's not a good look.
No, that's right. So we got very low turnover of staff. We've lost a few. Like, one chick had a rich boyfriend, didn't want to work anymore.
Yeah,
I wouldn't either. Another chick went into a family business and things like that. But like in terms of people just resigning, we haven't had any cases where someone just resigned to go work for a competitor. So that would prove to me that we've got something wrong in our model. You're always going to have staff turnover for reasons out of your control. But if you're losing staff to competitors, it's probably a good sign that you're not creating an environment that is conducive with what a staff member is looking for. Yeah. So we support them, like half the time I go in and talk to the staff member, because I just travel around clinic to clinic, and you're just talking about their personal life. You might spend 5 minutes talking about something they've forgotten or something they could do a bit better, or settings and things like that, and educating them, because we're constantly trying to build people. But you want to be someone who they want to talk to. So you're a friend as well. So I look at all my staff. I call them my daughters. Like, I've got 15 daughters. I might be talking about their boy problems today, or, fighting with mum, or moving house, or like whatever. Like, that's part of your job, is to be relatable to your staff.
As a business owner, you do need to be a counselor.
Yeah.
You do need to be all of those other things on top of what you mentioned before. But I think, like, when people feel like they can connect and communicate with you and talk about things that aren't just like admin and, just everyday things, like, it does make them stickier. It does show them that you do value them as a person.
And you do. But the thing is, if you genuinely care, it comes naturally. I don't try to do it. I'll try to, where possible, if they're not busy, take them for lunch. Ask about the wedding that's coming up. If your staff member gets married and you're not invited, that's probably a good sign as well.
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff, like, well, I don't know, like, look at like, when I walk into your business, I'm astounded by how many people sit on that floor. How do you manage that, I guess?
Yeah, look, staffing for us, look, the challenges at times, I think for us, we've been really lucky. Like, we we have really low staff turnover. We invest very heavily in team events and the social aspect and doing things for the team that, you know, sort of make them feel like it's a unique. They're not going to. They could go to a competitor. They're never going to get an experience like what they do in their business. You know, we have had some bad leavers, and unfortunately, in our industry, you know, they can be really damaging to your business. Like for example, you know, if they talking to clients or partners or something like that, then you know, directly, then when they leave, they can just like, you know, solicit those clients and partners. And
do you have like a non-soliciting?
we do.
Is it enforceable?
Yeah, we've got a very robust employment.
Yeah, that's good.
But the reality is, we try and focus on hiring good people.
Yeah,
like actually good, and we don't get it right all the time because I'm the same. Sometimes like someone comes referred by someone else, and you sort of take their word, and it doesn't necessarily work out, or it's like, you know, this employee was really good, and then they have like a cousin or like a friend or a whatever, and it's like, you know, can you give them
I think
a
you
shot?
can sometimes as well overestimate your ability to build someone into what you want. I think I've done that before where I'm like, I look at someone, I go, I can fix this. I can fix this.
Yeah.
And you try to fix it. And I've never, when someone comes into me with, for example, they can't take criticism.
Yeah.
That's like my job is to give criticism, constructive feedback and things like that. If someone doesn't take that well, you can't teach that. There's certain like characteristics within people. And I've made that mistake where I'm a little bit too nice in the hiring process. Like you should be, that should be when you looked at as a see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think our hiring process has been what saved us.
Yeah.
You can't get it right all the time. Anyone who tells you that is lying.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, you can increase your odds of getting the right people, and you know, we have like a matrix system where we score them on different attributes. And so, for example, it might be their attitude. It might be, you know, just the way they talk. Like, are they someone who seems like a grateful person? Like, you can ask the right questions that will tell you if they have the sense of entitlement that is usually a bad sign.
Yeah.
Or if they're grateful for even small things, you know, like just the way they talk about their previous employers. And, you know, like, for example, whenever somebody comes into my office and starts telling me, yeah, you know, I'm working at a competing business XYZ, and, you know, like all the partners are me and they'll come with me, I straight away know. And I've said it to people in the interview. I'm like, if you're doing that to your existing employer, you're going to steal their clientele and database and that stuff. What makes you think that, you know, like what is going to make me think that you're not going to do the same to me? See you later.
Yeah. It's
because like someone who has that in them will always have that in them. There's nothing like, that's just a fundamental way about they're wired. They're entitled to like, these are my clients, even though they didn't actually sign the clients up, just because they've been given to them on their lap. Like here's a new partner that's been assigned to you, blah, blah, blah. So like that's always been a challenge. But I think the biggest challenge for our business is slightly different, probably to yours, because we have a pretty large element that's technology, and the investment required in building technology in an industry that's not known for being
it doesn't advance, does it? It seems that the industry just spins its wheels and you just get the same thing over, rinse and repeat. Like when I used to get a loan when I was 18 years old, probably what I shouldn't have been getting a loan, but nothing has changed until now. Yeah. And that's why for me, with partnering with you guys, it was like, fuck, this is a product that any idiot in my business, the customer wise, like a 65-year-old woman can go through that process and within 5 minutes be at least within your funnel. Yeah. And if you can operate an iPad,
have a good idea on whether they're going to be
approved, that's right.
Which lender they're going to be approved for. And yeah, like of course we always sort of we're building out the partnership section of our business, and you know, it's intriguing to me to see, you know, businesses like yours wanting to partner. And obviously we're mates and we support each other every way we can, but at a business sense it makes sense as well. Like think about it like this: if you're a business and you have a high ticket item that you're selling, and you know some of your businesses use Afterpay or whatever, you know, you're giving away a certain percentage of your margin.
Well, I can tell you exactly what we give away, right?
Yeah.
So this is how bad Afterpay is for us as a company. You have to offer it, especially in this climate. But once loan options integrates, I don't see a need for Afterpay within our system because they're pretty low value tickets. It's a pretty low ticket item. It's, you know, between, you can get your whole tattoo removed for an average of $1,000 to $5,000.
Yeah.
So your requirement is $2,000 plus. But if we, for example, sell a package, so you give a discount like any beauty place. So we give a 20% discount to the customer for buying a package of 6. Afterpay then takes 7%. How many businesses are operating over 30% margin? Very few.
Yeah.
You know, so we're working for free on these people. And I'd rather just get a good system like Loan Options in place where there's no fee. The customer can choose who they want to go with. They can choose like a higher interest, lower, no fees. They can still pay it off in 6 weeks if they want. Yeah. That's the thing. We get paid tomorrow. They come back, get their treatment, and they can still use it like Afterpay, where there's
any interest they are paying is offset by the discount you're giving.
And that's exactly right. Yeah. So we created a model with you, like after consultation, where we give the biggest discount because I really want to funnel people into it and away from Afterpay. You know, Afterpay is great for customers, but really bad for businesses. You're also not allowed to offset the fee of Afterpay. So it's about 7 or 12, 15% for some retailers, I'm pretty sure. Whatever it is, it sucks because I'm not allowed to say, well, I'll charge you 7% more. Otherwise, I'll lose my Afterpay account.
But a lot of people don't realize this. One of the main causes of inflation at the moment is the use of these services. Like, I'll give you an example. If the t-shirt shop, the retail outlet, is selling this t-shirt for $60,
yep.
whatever, right? And now 60, 70, 80, 90% of the clientele are using Afterpay to buy that $60 shirt. What is the business going to do? The business is losing the margin. So guess what they do?
They put the price up.
Now that shirt is $80.
That's right.
To cover their costs, right? And it's the same thing, like people don't realize it, but you know, what used to happen is someone, let's say for example, there was $100 dress that a girl wants to buy or whatever, or a $100 shirt that a guy wants to buy. They used to just buy the $100 shirt and wear that. Now in this sort of more materialistic consumerism culture, you know, and Afterpay is available and it's so easy, what's actually happening is now the person that used to buy a $100 shirt is buying the $500 shirt, the Gucci one.
We're all guilty of it.
Right? And because you can, or the $400 shirt, and then it's paid in full. So like, still only $100, but it's $100 4 times.
Exactly right.
So that's what's actually happening. And it's just.
So you're probably going to see those little retailers and the smaller guys filter out because we're giving access. Like you never used to see Gucci. Gucci was a big thing, man.
Yeah.
And now every second person's wearing it.
Yeah.
You know, like kids in school are wearing Prada bags to school. And it's whether, I don't think everyone's paying it. You know, like if you look at the credit rate, like we see, like you get an FPOS invoice, right? And you see who's paying on credit, like not who, but you see your percentages.
Yeah.
It's mostly credit these days.
Yeah.
People are living well without, like beyond their means.
And we're seeing that through all the data that's coming out on like default rates and consumer sentiment and all this kind of stuff. Like people are they're just bombarded with rising cost of living and all this kind of stuff. But they're not willing to sacrifice their lifestyle.
Yeah, that's the same with me. Like even as pretty successful and in like, you know, you could drive a nice car and all that sort of stuff. I don't just go buy a kitchen on credit. I'll wait. I'd love to get a new kitchen, but I'll wait until I'm in a position to pay for the kitchen. Because if you start to leverage yourself, then you're only 1 or 2 bad things away from being fucked.
Yeah.
And whether you're working for someone and then you get put in a position where you either have to leave a good job to go into a higher paying job you're going to hate. It's just a big, like people don't realize the snowball effect of credit and how it can affect you. And, you know, these things, especially for young kids, it can affect you. Like a default on Afterpay is a black mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can default on something that's worth like $700 and ruin your ability to get a mortgage.
Buy a house. Yeah.
So if you then have to wait an extra 5 years on your mortgage, if you count the equity value of that 5 years, you could be talking millions of dollars from a $400 shirt when you're 60 and you retire and you sell that house. So you literally can a shirt on Afterpay or even any other loan. But that's what I like about you guys is you don't work with the low ticket.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to educate people in the process as well. Like the amount of content we've invested in, educational content, videos. This podcast is another example. We've had experts in budgeting and financial advice and all this kind of stuff. Like we're investing heavily in teaching people like what a credit rating is. I had a credit repair expert in the other day talking about that. Like when we on a lot of occasions tell people we're not going to give you the loan, not because we can't
Ethically.
because it's not the right thing to do, and we want you to go away and do these 3-4
Well, I
things.
sent you a few cars that you probably laughed at. Like, I don't think that's they're probably a bit out of here.
we try our best to do it the right way, because credit is a dangerous thing. If it's not used properly, there's a lot of situations like a mortgage, for example, where credit is a really good thing because you can leverage it and get the capital growth of the property.
Yeah.
There's a lot, same thing with business equipment and assets, like amazing. There's some things that, is a personal decision. Like, for example, if you got a tattoo that you weren't happy with when you were really young and like now you sort of got kids or whatever, like that decision. And it's the same thing with people who want to get cosmetic surgery. Like I can't tell you how much your nose job is worth in terms of your self-esteem.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Right? Like if that's really, if you're getting bullied or if your self-esteem's low because you have like I have a terrible nose and probably no amount of nose jobs in the world could fix mine, but
that's why you always tap to pressure when I submit you
mother's milk. So there's no amount of like that's not for me to say. So a lot of this is a personal decision. Like how much is fixing the nose or whatever, like how much is that going to help you?
Well, you think
confidence and all this
even in what we do, like ethically I would not offer finance to someone if I thought they didn't need it, right? Or if I knew their circumstances, but we don't know that. They come in, everyone's an adult, but we have people who have been forced to get their ex-partner's names on them and then domestically abused. We have people who are taking tattoos off for employment purposes. If you're studying for the bar, whether you like it or not, you're judged by your tattoos. So if you've got hand tattoos, you're at uni, you might not be able to do it. Paying this off at $50 a week can make a huge value, both financially and aesthetically and emotionally. So it is something that, often we'll finish a tattoo on someone and they'll be in tears when their tattoo's finished. They'll be in tears because it changes their life. We do some work for free as well. Like we've got...
like a pro bono stuff.
Yeah, we do pro bono work. So, we had this kid that came in and he was, I don't know if it was bipolar or schizophrenic, and he went into like an episode and he came out of it and he had like upside down crosses and like all this like satanic shit all over his body. And he wasn't in a position, he was with a carer. So we work up for free for people like that. Chance for change. So we've got a program where we remove racist or hate-based tattoos off people. So the amount of swastika, we do it for free. Yeah. So they apply and they have to go through their criminal convictions. We won't work with anyone who's hurt women or children because we're a women business. I'm the only two men in the business. So I'm a supporter of women. So I'd never put my staff in a position where they're helping someone who's done that. So that's my criteria.
Yeah.
I made my own criteria.
Great.
And I will not, if you've hurt a child or a woman, and I make them send me their print off if I'm not sure. I do a little interview and then I say, here you go, $5,000 of tattoo removal free. Because it's not about them. There's a good chance they're still a scumbag and they just want their tattoo off. But they got kids and they got nephews, and seeing a swastika on someone's chest, it normalizes it.
Yeah.
So it's a little thing. So although it looks like, oh, you're removing tattoos, what an idiot, got a tattoo, like you can also make difference in people's lives and also other people's, like the flow-on effect. So
I love that. And
yeah.
Look, there's a lot of reasons why I respect you, but I love just at your very core how good your principles and your morals, like that's a great thing, like removing the racist and sort of tattoos. Like, and I know that's something that you and your missus would have come up with because you're just good people.
Well, you just look at what you can do. Like, what can I offer?
Yeah.
So it seems on face value, like tattoo removal, what can you do to help society? And then when we thought about it, and we actually thought about it in COVID, it was during lockdown because we were just looking at every aspect of how, because don't get me wrong, it's been great for promotion for the business as well.
Yeah.
But it's also in the community's eyes when they look us up, they see those news articles and they go, these are good people.
Yeah.
And you want to be a good person in business because
I do think people get attracted to businesses that are making a difference. And I'm not talking about the virtue signaling crap, the, you know, whatever flag is flying.
See, we don't do any of that. We don't we support causes and each individual within our business, but we don't blur the boundary. We're not into politics, religion. We don't put up Merry Christmas, Happy Easter, any of that, because we've got people from every single place and we don't want to celebrate every day. Yeah. We just say, look, that's for everyone's individual. But we've got to stand with no politics, no religion, none of that. No, anything that you read in the newspaper is probably the stuff we're going to ignore.
Yeah.
And you get in trouble if you do make a stand. And then you also have people that want you to make a stand. That's not my position. Because also I don't want to influence people with my position. That's not my job. Yeah. I'm not your father or your mother or your teacher. I'm here to remove your tattoos.
I wish more businesses were like you, mate.
Yeah.
I wish more businesses were like you, because there's things that businesses can do, but they choose not to because they're not cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
It's not the cool thing to promote.
Yep.
So I love that, mate. So congratulations to you on that chance for a change. That's a great thing. Really did warm my heart when you told me about that. I thought that was awesome idea. And so there's a lot of things that you do as a person that a lot of people won't see, even just like supporting me, you know, talking to other blokes in the
getting
gym.
Abused getting abused in the voting booth.
There's a lot of things that people may not see with you, but you know, I know that you know, I certainly don't forget these things. I'm really proud to call you a friend, and I'm very proud of you and all the things that you've achieved in your business and all the adversity that you've overcome and all that kind of stuff, and your wife as well, your beautiful son. It's great to see some of the good guys, you know, be successful.
Oh, that's what I said about you, Julian. Like the love, I think the best reflection of you was that day that I came to your office and I saw the love and like the way that people look up to you, and you're supporting so many people, but also, you know, like you're a good bloke, you're a good dad. So you're someone that inspires people like me to just be that little bit better. So same goes for you, man. I'm very, very happy to call you a friend.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to get smashed by you in the gym. So
I want to smash you next week. That's it. We've been nice enough.
Yeah,
so next week we're going to fight.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on.